I'd like to thank all of the people who contributed to this debate. The very first thing, Minister, I want to raise with you is and I think it was the first thing you raised in your contributions in response to my opening statement. It relates to the Peter Smith investigation. And you were very satisfied with it, and you went through the reasons why you were very satisfied with it. But it wasn't measured against the National Broadband Plan communications protocol. It just seemed to ignore that. And that communications protocol was very clear. And this was the rules that were set down. This was the not the guidance, but this was how it was to be complied with. And what it says in relation to canvassing: the following prohibition on canvassing applies and is detailed in section 13.9 of the Project Information Memorandum, which states, direct or indirect canvassing by any bidder, consortium member, bidder member, or their suppliers or advisors in relation to the project or the procurement, or any attempt to obtain information from any of the agents or employees of the department, its political representatives or its appointed advisors concerning another bidder or a solution or final tender or the procurement is prohibited. Bidders must not offer, give or agree to give to any member of the department or his advisors or the evaluation team any gift or consideration of any kind as an inducement or reward in relation to the obtaining or execution of any contract. Any breach of this section will entitle the department to immediately disqualify the bidder concerned from the procurement and or cancel or terminate the contract, etc., etc. Now that's pretty clear, Minister. That was the rules that were set out in relation to the relationship. And you went on to say then that you quoted from Mr. Smith's report when he said that the very fact that the minister decided to resign was quite an important aspect. Minister, I was in here the day when Minister Naughton came in, where we sat here and we waited for him to go through some of the detail and to respond to some of the concerns that we had. And it's very clear that that was a reluctant resignation. That resignation was on foot of a loss of confidence by the Taoiseach in the minister. This wasn't about decided to resign to preserve a process. So let's not rewrite history in relation to this. And Mr. Smith was the process auditor. And the process auditor had a responsibility to make sure that the process actually worked as it was laid out. And it didn't work as it was laid out. So I don't think there's, it is really defendable to go to that Peter Smith report and say it was robust. It wasn't. I want to go back to the whole point of the municipal area networks. And it was supposed, they were put in place so that everyone that was within those areas would be in a position to use them inexpensively, or at least in a cost-efficient way. But anecdotally, there's evidence from people in the industry, and they say that the usage numbers are relatively small, and in some towns they're barely being used at all. So it's as much to do with penetration as it is to the rollout of the man's contract. That's why it's so important that we have the information in advance of any tender being awarded in relation to the National Broadband Plan, because that's where we will get the information about what is or isn't working. And Minister, and I welcome the fact that the Mason analysis report is going to be published in the coming weeks, and I hope it's going to be before any tender is awarded. But it strikes me that the appeal that has been taken to the appeals court is moot if you're going to produce the information in that report that has been suppressed by virtue of the fact that the department has not decided to adhere to what the Information Commissioner has said and appeal to it. And can I ask, is there a value in or can I ask you, will that court, or will you consider stopping that appeal on the basis that that information should be in the public domain and could be in the public domain in the context of the Mason analysis report, because it will be gathering the information from the same source. Now, we talked about other providers, like, for example, BT. BT were entirely unhappy, and some of what they said was, and I understand these are competitors, I understand that, but they are key players in a market that know the market, so you don't ignore them. And it doesn't appear that the department took the concerns that they had on board when they were considering the extension of the man's contract. And they said in the letter that the operators have the right to enter the competitive national leased lines market. However, we would have serious concerns if ENET were to leverage the man's regional state aid into the competitive national market. The state aid approval requires, and we are seeking to ensure that ENET trades its man's dark fibre on a transparent and non-discriminatory wholesale basis to other parties on the same terms, conditions and prices that it sells to itself. This would mitigate against ENET giving itself preferential treatment. Indeed, we question whether the state aid approval allows ENET to sell to itself, since it states specifically that ENET cannot act as a retail service provider. Yet it has an associated company, Airspeed, who sell on the retail market. I mean, these were valid concerns that were being expressed, and yet the analysis was that it was working fine. And in terms of ENET's withdrawal from the National Broadband Plan, what they said at the time was Eir has worked through the formal dialogue channels to try to ensure that the National Broadband Plan not only delivers on the policy objective of providing high-speed broadband throughout Ireland, but that it does so in an efficient and cost-effective manner, based upon the significant commercial issues and complexity within their tender process, together with the growing uncertainty on a range of regulatory and pricing issues that reside outside the national broadband process. The company board has decided that the risks are too great. Now, I'd like to have a much greater understanding of what they meant by that. And because this was, these were people who had the technical expertise to deliver the National Broadband Plan, which is not like the consortium that is there at the moment, which certainly has the financial wherewithal, but does it have the technical wherewithal? Now, some of the other contributors, and I can really understand the frustration people feel in relation to the delay, but it may well be that a delay at this point, and I'm not pressing you for a quick decision, Minister, I'm pressing you for the right decision on this, because this has the potential to come back and bite us in terms of both the delivery and the price. And I don't think it's at all clear the kind of costs that could be associated with a subsidy that would have to be paid to make sure that this will be rolled out to every household, which is the ambition. Now, it may be that the rollout is available to every house, but the penetration may not be as good as it needs to be, or it may well be very low if it's prohibitively expensive. And some in the man's area are not taking up and quite a sizable number of people are not taking it up presumably because of cost in a lot of cases. So we do need to know the kind of expectation for the subsidy that will be paid, because the amount of money that's been talked about, there's wide variations from 500 million to 3 billion is the kind of money that's been talked about. So, Minister, it's really important that there is much more information made available to us, but I'd stress the importance of getting this right, because it may well be that the more haste, the less speed. If we have to come back and review something in a year or two, if the right people are not in place with the right technical expertise to actually deliver the broadband.
Thank you very much.